Hi guys, welcome to GunnerKing's Court. We've got lots to discuss today. There's been lots going on. I've got a special guest today, James, who I actually caught on the terrace yesterday, discussing a couple of Arsenal transfer. James, why don't you tell everyone a bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, no worries. Hi, everyone. I am James. I am 22. I am an Arsenal fan. I've been an Arsenal fan since I can remember. My dad was an Arsenal fan. My granddad was an Arsenal fan. So it's kind of ran down through the family. But yeah, I'm just here to give my opinions on certain topics and hope to provide a good enough insight into current topics.
Yeah, and I mean, as I said, it's great to have you on. I thought the insights that you gave yesterday were first class. I think it was the Lokonga transfer amongst a few other things that we discussed, both of us, and yeah, it's great to have you on. And hopefully, it can lead to having you on a lot more, guys. If you are tuning in, don't forget to smash the likes. And subscribe to the FTB Sports channel, where you can find all of the latest football news from various different teams, as well as our own. The Armoury TV is officially launching on the 30th of June. You've got the Man United agenda and other North London club that can't even find a manager. They've got PAXTON Road as well. Smash the likes, guys, subscribe, and stay tuned for content that we've got coming, and we've got big plans for next season. But speaking of plans for next season, from an Arsenal perspective, I mean, it's been crazy just to see how much activity I think has been in the transfer window for Arsenal, particularly at this early stage, which isn't really like us, which definitely is exciting. But today, I think, that this news was particularly pleasing to see. And just going to get that up now. Kieran Tierney moving to agree his extension of his contract. And James, why don't you tell me your thoughts on Tierney renewing his contract? I mean, I doubt we'll find many Arsenal fans that will be too displeased about it, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, for sure. As I said to you backstage, I'm absolutely buzzing. He's my favorite player in the current Arsenal squad. I know a lot of people like Bukayo Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe, but for me, he represents everything that Arsenal stood for. I was born in 1999, so I never really got to see the great teams before 2000s, and even in the Invincibles team like Thierry Henry, Bergkamp, all of that lot, I was still very young. So I've only got videos that I've watched or past streams that have showed gameplay to really see what quality Arsenal team was about. And for me, it's always been really strong characters and people that are really hardworking. And for me, he's just a guy that loves football, and that's as simple as I can put it. He puts his heart into every single game that he plays, and he doesn't leave any. He just leaves everything on the field. So for me, I'm absolutely buzzing, and I think it's really good business as well, because I think he had 3 years left off of his current deal.
Yeah.
Before extending this, but for me, this is just excellent. Getting ahead of the curve before interest, like we've seen rumors of Napoli that are interested and this kind of thing. So yeah, I'm just really buzzing for the contract extension, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think you definitely touched on something there. I think for me, it's not just the fact that this is the sort of guy that we need in the dressing room, not just in terms of his ability, but his tenacity and his doggedness. People talk about maybe a lack of fight or character or personality in our squad, and Tierney's got all of those things in spades. So it's good to see us building for the future. I think the last decade is littered with cautionary tales of players that we've let walk out the door. for nothing after spending huge amounts to bring them to the club. So I think whilst we've got transfer business bubbling along in the background, and there is a need to really kind of bring in a lot more quality in a number of areas, I think it's great to see us moving early to tie someone down so that we don't end up in a Ramsey, or a Ozil or kind of situation, a Sanchez, Robin van Persie, just to name a few.
So many.
There's just too many, So I think it's good to see that the new regime with Richard Garlick and other backroom staff members that have come in to look at the contract and the sort of back office side of things with players is kicking in and doing its job. Encouraging news, and I mean, I can't wait to see him absolutely rip it up next year. So I think. Do you know how much longer they've extended the contract for?
I think it's a 5-year deal, so I think he's here till 2026. So as I said, I'm absolutely buzzing. It's just securing an asset. It's not something we've done. We're so poor in making sure our assets are protected, as you said. Like, we've let so many players that have got a value walk for nothing. Ramsey, Wilshere, as you said, Alexis Sanchez, Ozil, etc. Like, we extended Ozil, but obviously he left the Fenerbahce for free. But for me, it's great because I see him as the future captain. Obviously, Aubameyang is the captain now, but if I'm going to be really critical of Aubameyang, yes, he's a quality player, but for me, he doesn't have that leadership quality. I don't know if you agree or you disagree, but from every captain that you see is on top of everyone, making sure you're doing your job, especially in a defensive line. Aubameyang doesn't seem to do that. He seems to be a bit jokey, a bit lighthearted, and that's the vibe I get from it. And I think that's great, but I don't think you make a Rolls Royce like a captain. You make someone that's really, really hardworking, understands the club, understands the players, and gets what it is meant to be for the captain. So, yeah, in my eyes, he's the future captain, and I can't be more happy.
Yeah, and I think, that's definitely something I agree with as well. I think sometimes in life, or in football, players can get elevated because they're good players to being a captain, but they don't necessarily have those leadership qualities that are required for a captain. I mean, for me, it's no coincidence that Aubameyang has never been a captain at club level previously. I don't think in his career.
I don't think so either.
As good as he was at Dortmund, I can't think. No, I
think it was Hummels or Royce that was captain at the time. I think it was Royce that he was captain when Aubameyang was there.
Yeah, mostly Hummels and Royce were captains at Dortmund. I think when he was at AC Milan and other clubs.
Saint Etienne, I don't think he was either. So
no, I think Gabon is understandable because it's his country and he's the standout star quality player. But I think at the moment, obviously what happened with Xhaka kind of forced the armband on him. It wasn't so to say because he necessarily had the right qualities. It was kind of a captain by default situation. Yeah. And whereas I look at Tierney and I see those qualities, I just see youth, sort of not being, or age not being on his side and seniority. So I think give it a few years, he'll definitely step into that role. And I think it's great to tie him down and work towards that end with Tierney as well. So I think the other huge talking point, which it split the Armoury right down the middle. Shout out to Tony. I know he's watching. Amongst the others, Canners, Nigerian Englishman, Gumza, and I think there's a whole lot to unpack with this transfer. It's looking like it's close to completion, but I think Patrick Timmons asking the question there that is probably dividing our fan base at the moment with this transfer. Yeah, and look, I think he's a good player. I think my only reservation would be if signing him at the cost would mean scraping the barrel for more priority areas, in my opinion, which should be the center of midfield, possibly right back. Is he going to play as a right back? I mean, that's being talked about as well. There's been lots going around regarding his heat map, sort of overall in the season that shows that he does his best work sort of in the right channel. So maybe an inverted fullback role is being talked about. I mean, what are your thoughts, James, on the whole Ben White situation?
As you said, I think it's just what worries me is that this signing is so divisive before it's even happened. He's not even wearing the Arsenal shirt yet. And I've already seen on socials that people are saying, not my centre-back, free Saliba and stuff like this. So I feel like it's going to be hard for Ben White if he doesn't hit the ground running. Because if he doesn't hit the ground running, as you said, you're going to have 50% of the fan base that is going to be like, right, okay, we need to back him. Obviously, we spent a lot of money on the player, but then you're obviously going to have the comparisons to as a William Saliba, who I'm more worried about than anything else with this transfer is what's going to happen with William Saliba. And for me personally, I'm really excited about the Ben White deal. The reason why I'm excited, and I don't think a lot of people have touched on this, is his injury record. His injury record is impeccable. I did a little bit digging before the show, and in the past 4 seasons, so he played in League 2, League 1, Championship, and obviously this year is in the Premier League. Across those seasons, he's collectively played close to 15,000 minutes, and that's just in the leagues. That's not internal like Papa John's Cups, like FA Cups, Carling Cups. This is just in the league. That's how many games he's played. So last year he played 36 in the Championship. I think it was 46, 24, and then in League 2 was 42. So you're talking a lot of minutes. And for me, what our defense has lacked is stability. We always seem to, it be bad luck or poor recruitment, we always seem to sign centre-backs that get little niggles, get injured. We haven't had a consistent pairing of centre-backs for a long time. Like what I can remember, it was Per Mertesacker and Koscielny. Well, you remember when we had that pairing where we had, I think it was like an incredible record of where when they started, I think it was like 20 games in a row we didn't lose. We haven't had that consistency. We've had Koscielny and Mustafi, we've had Koscielny and Gabriel Palista and these kind of players, but it's always been one's in, one's injured, bring her back up. It's never been really consistently, if you think about it, our first choice centre-backs there for 90% of the games. It's always been chop and change. And for me, that's why I'm really excited about Ben White is set aside his qualities. He has an impeccable injury record. He hasn't been injured in 4 seasons. So fingers crossed, I don't jinx it when he plays next season, when we sign him, if we sign him. But for me, that's the standout quality. And obviously you have the type of player he is. He's very, very nimble. He's very, very good on his feet. He's quick. He's really good with the ball. Like you see in the previous season, some of the long balls he's played to Lamptey, to Mopai, like some of these are creative players that they have that really resonant to David Luiz and just his ability to be able to ping a ball. But I think the difference between Ben White and David Luiz or Rob Holding is there's the lack of error-prone mistakes, but also he has that ability to hold a deep line because he's quick. Sorry, a high line, because he's quick. You see Rob Holding, you see David Luiz, they're always back. And when Arteta tries to play a high line system, you need centre-backs that are quick and can play that high line. So for me, that's where I'm at with the Ben White. I think it's going to be it's expensive, don't get me wrong. For the player right now, it's an investment, but the upside for what he can do for this team, if he works, then I think it's a very, very smart signing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's a few things that you touched on there that I definitely agree with as well. I think, looking at it from the perspective of playing a high line, it's very difficult to do that when your centre-backs don't have pace, or they'll just get exposed at the end of the day. You're looking then at your fullbacks having to cover or your keeper having to come out into dangerous areas. So, I think Gabriel definitely has pace. I mean, Mari's not the quickest. And the thing is, you got to be quick on the turn as well. So you have pace, but none of the centre backs that we have strike me as players that are quick on the turn or on the half turn. So in addition to that pace, I think you've got to look at that when trying to recover the ball, or sort of relying on recovering when someone has broken that line with a pass, and an attacker's kind of got into that space behind the defenders. So I see him being good in that respect. His distribution looks very good as well. And I think, that sort of ability to spray the ball diagonally to a side that is very strong. We all know about our left-hand side and its kind of attacking capabilities. When you kind of draw the play, for those that play football, they obviously know that you can draw the play by moving the ball to one side. And if you've got someone with the ability to suddenly switch it to the other one, can open up a lot of space on the left. And I personally think that Aubameyang wasn't found enough in those situations from deep. Tierney overlapping on the other side, I think could be found more in those situations. Smith Rowe, if he plays out on the left, Martinelli, these are all players that are going to thrive from that kind of service, from possession being turned over in this way. So I think he's good for that, definitely. And I think what you were saying about the concerns sort of in terms of splitting the fan base is one that I definitely have. I think there's this really high level of toxicity in our fan base at the moment. And the unfortunate circumstance would be he comes in and doesn't make an immediate or quick enough impact for the fans to be on his side. And then it's suddenly brought up, to further an agenda of someone who likes a Holding or a Saliba, or both, or Mavropanos, who we're getting rid of I think that's my biggest concern, along with the money from his transfer taking away from the allocation of other areas. But in terms of his quality and what we've seen, I definitely think we can't sort of deny that he's got something. And I think what you said about the injury record, I hadn't really thought of that before as well. I mean, if you think about playing as a defender in the lower divisions, you're going to be sort of riding some challenges. You're going to be facing some sort of battle axes, that are really going to be, especially for a young centre back, they're going to be, really kind of doing a number on you physically. And he's come through that. He's been robust, in the lower divisions. So I don't think the physical side of the game is going to phase him that much, at this level. But I mean, it's exciting, to see us obviously going in for this young talent. Everyone was in for him at the beginning of last season after his breakout season at Leeds. Well, I say breakout, but I mean, that was sort of the highest level of experience he had with Leeds getting promoted. You could consider that his kind of breakout or coming of age season. And I was surprised Brighton kept hold of him, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Leeds bid, I think it was 30 to 35 million for him last season, and they kept hold of him. Obviously, smart decision. We're paying 15 million more. But I think what you touched on about how strong our left side is compared to our right side, and for me, signing someone like a Ben White and adding Saliba, I think shores up that right-hand side of the defense. I think Holding, as much as a good defender he is, he's limited. Like, we've seen what Rob Holding can do. Before he did I think it was his ACL, when he was having that fantastic season, I thought Rob Holding was the answer. I thought he was quality, but ever since he tried to come back from that injury, he doesn't look the same player. And for me, when you're talking about our defensive frailties, it has predominantly, a lot of it has come from the right-hand side, because obviously we have a poor right back. We have Hector Bellerin. Well, I won't go too deep into Hector Bellerin, but offensively he's okay, but defensively we know he's error-prone. Cedric Suarez is, I'm just say it bluntly, mediocre at best. I think he was a free signing, so I'm not going to complain. And then you have our defense trying to play out of the back. And if you said our defenders are slow on the half turn, who are they going to go to? They're going to go to a right back that's not good defensively, or a goalkeeper that's not good with the ball at his feet. Like, we both know Leno isn't a great ball playing goalkeeper. He's a good goalkeeper, a good shot stopper, but for the system we play, it doesn't, those profiles aren't right for the system. And I think by adding Ben White, by potentially adding Andre Onana, who I think will be a quality, and a right back, say, for example, like Aarons or Lamptey, while they're inexperienced, I think that's an upgrade. And I think as a unit, that just makes us more solid, because we're not worried about the counter-attacking deep block teams, which we don't create enough to beat. You see, when we play our counter-attacking style against the big teams, it works, because we're all behind the ball. So it's a lot harder for them to knock it over. But when the premise is for us to take it to teams, you've seen the counterattacks like Burnley, like Everton, like Aston Villa. How many times have they gone one ball over the top, go? That happened throughout the season. And I think by changing these profiles, we can address that. And going forward as a team next season, I think it will put us in a lot better stead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, looking at this is really about the profile. I think, this is obviously Tony here, and he's a big Rob Holding fan. And I mean, look, I think as well, Holding had his best season last season. But I just think the profile, as you described, sort of how he is on the turn, how the rest of the defenders are on the turn, you look at how many different partnerships Arteta tried to use as a centre-back pairing, unprecedented. I think we must have made the most centre-back pairings, more than any Premier League team. And I think, a lot of fans can get lost in, but we got the third best defensive record in the league. And it's like, I think when you look at the creative side of our game, as you described, the cost that comes at, if you've not got that person that is a bit more press resistant as well as a centre back, that can then kind of maybe travel a bit with the ball out from defence, carry it into midfield, or distribute the ball into midfield, or bypass the midfield with a long ball over the top, to quickly counter, then, your attacking midfielders and your strikers will struggle for service. It's just a fact, So a lot of people look at attack, and I every show I say this. A lot of people look at attack as, we didn't create much last season. Yeah, that's a personnel problem with our creative and our attacking midfielders, not at the disconnect or how disjointed our defense and our midfield is in getting the ball into attack. And I think Ben White and Onana, as you say, are great for that. You look at City, Ednison getting assists last season and the season before, Alisson doing the same. To hit teams on the break, and obviously those guys having the centre backs that are able to distribute in the nature that we're discussing.
I think for sure as well. I think our issue is, obviously you said we don't create enough chances. That's a fact. Like, I understand that, but for me, it's, as you said, it's the disconnect between our backline and our pivot. I think we're sideways FC. We hardly ever progress through the middle of the pitch. It's always out to the fullbacks, run out to David Luiz, ping it to the corner, and we cross. Like, that's our play style, and we're scared to push through the midfield because we don't have the quality. I rate Xhaka, but I don't think he's suited to the Premier League. I think he's a 100% slower player that can go, as he's going to Roma, Serie A. I think it'd be great because there's not a lot of the intensity of the game isn't as high as it is in the Premier League. But as I said, addressing the back allows us to. We need to do so much work to the midfield, but I think there's a statistic I read is that we're like the third or fourth best team in terms of getting the ball into the final third. Apologies, but we don't create the chances. I think we're like 15th for chances created. So a lot of that is coming from balls to the wing, and we're crossing it, and we don't have that central focus player that is gonna be in the air and winning headers. The only time we win headers is from corners or free kicks, and that's where I think our addressing Ben White and signing him. Yes, as some people in the comments are saying, 50 million is a lot, but for me, it's worth the risk.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, like the first stat that you said, obviously, of us being one of the best in progressing the ball into the midfield or the final third, I think it
Mhm.
was.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's all well and good doing that, but because it's so slow
Yeah.
and it's so methodical, it's
Mhm.
almost too regimented
Mhm.
in the process of doing that. What it allows the opposition to do is to set up their banks of however many midfielders and
Yeah.
defenders
Mhm.
in front of the players advancing with the ball, which is why it goes sideways. So
Mhm.
you can look at that as an issue of the ball either not getting into it quick enough, even though it's getting there a lot,
Mhm.
and it's because of that lack of invention or guile in distribution,
Yeah.
in the defensive midfield, the range of passing in there is very limited to shorter passes or sideways passes, no line breaking passes,
Yeah.
like no passes that switch the play,
Mhm.
that, as I said, where you can draw the play into one side and switch it to the other,
Mhm.
because you've not got that caliber of distributor. So I think raising the floor of players that can play with the ball at their feet
Mhm.
throughout the spine of the team is very
Yeah.
important.
Mhm.
And yeah, I definitely think White falls into that category. As I said, yeah, the only thing that worries me about the price tag is it going to affect us getting other targets?
Yeah.
I think beyond that, I don't really think fans should worry about the money
Mhm.
we're spending. Like in terms of,
No.
like you said, 35 million is what Brighton turned down for him a season ago. And
Yeah.
this is 36 games later.
Mhm.
We know there's a further tax for the fact that he's now been called up to the international tournament.
Mhm.
On the balance of things, to go from not accepting 35 to now 50 after the season he's had,
Mhm.
I mean, you could be looking at that in the next 2, 3, 4, or 5 years
Yeah.
as a shrewd investment. And if he does turn out to have that level of impact, then you're looking at someone that could be a stalwart at the back for a
Years.
decade, give and
Yeah,
take. So,
I definitely think so, because what this is reminding me of is when Liverpool bought Van Dijk.
mhm.
Everyone was like, "Why are you paying £75 million for Van Dijk?" Within one season, everyone was like, "What a purchase! That was an unbelievable signing. Money
Mhm.
well spent." I think Ben White can have that similar effect. And let's not forget, last season, Man City bought Nathan Ake for £40 million. And in my opinion, Ben White is levels above Nathan Ake. Nathan Ake is a good centre back. But from what I've seen of Ben White, his injuries, his ceiling, I think spending 10 million more
Mhm.
is I say a good deal lightly because it's a lot of money, but if you're looking at it from perspective in terms of age, profile, longevity, and nationality as well, I think it's a good deal.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I think you could look at it two ways. I mean, obviously, Ake went to City for 40 million,
Mhm.
probably a bit more proven at Prem level in
Yeah.
terms of the games that he's played at Premier League level before he moved. Definitely capped more at
Mhm.
international level for Holland. Um, However, I mean, as we are reiterating, kind of there is an English tax
Yeah.
of English clubs selling to other English clubs, and we
Mhm.
know that tax is then added to when the player is actually English,
Yeah.
and then we know that is the case when they have international caps. And he's not
Yeah.
been capped in a major
Competitive.
tournament
Yeah.
match yet. You would like to think maybe that would happen this tournament,
Mhm.
but yeah, obviously the call up for this tournament, albeit because there was injury to Trent Alexander-Arnold,
Yeah.
that's going to inflate the price further. So I think you could say that any one or all of these things in combination probably lead to that 10 million difference with Ake.
Yeah.
And then when you factor in how much younger he is than Ake,
Mhm.
and sort of the ceiling value as well being equal, maybe a bit higher, then I think, yeah, all in all, I think that the labouring over the cost, I think, is a bit just ridiculous. I think, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, he's homegrown as well, so
Yeah. Good
when
point.
any player that hits your homegrown quota
Mhm.
is definitely. going to come at a premium. But I mean, this brings us into our next story, because obviously you mentioned there, and I mentioned as well, I think it's splitting the fan base a lot with some of the defenders that we do have. We discussed how it affects Holding or his status within the club. But obviously the fans, I think a lot of them have been really keen to see this guy finally play for Arsenal. And there's been all sorts of acrimony that surrounded his transfer to Arsenal. With what happened last season, the unfortunate passing of his mother, the early ending of the French league due to COVID, how that impacted his training and his match fitness. As a result, going out on loan, the mismanagement of how that loan was handled, and in effect wasting, the months between August and January in not getting him out on loan. But obviously he's gone to Nice and he's performed very well. There have been moments of lapses, but overall, for a defender his age, he's done very well. His previous loan spell at Saint-Etienne, where he formed a formidable partnership with Fofana of Leicester, I think was probably where we saw the best of him during the time that we purchased him. But yeah, I think now he has been called up to the France squad for the Olympics. Obviously Arteta's plan was very much to bed him in this pre-season, and to weigh up and assess whether or not he was ready for the Premier League. There's been all kinds of talks of him being loaned out, maybe to another Premier League team, maybe going back to Nice. Even worse, well, I don't want to say worse because I want to kind of be objective, but there have been talks of him being sold even this window as well. I think there's a few questions I want to ask. I mean, do you think with the plans to assess him in pre-season, obviously we would have wanted to do that with us, in our pre-season matches. Do you think that's affected by him being called up for the Olympics, where we'll effectively miss pre-season? Do you think that that will have any bearing on any decisions that's made on his future? Obviously, I think I agree that we shouldn't stand in the way of players representing their country. I don't think any club should, certainly not our own. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on all of those things?
For me, him being called up to the Olympics and us not saying no, I think that's indicating to a loan. If he was really going to stay with the squad and Arteta was really set and hell-bent on integrating him into the squad, I think they would say, no, sorry, you can't go to the Olympics. Have a good full preseason with us and be ready. The likelihood is, I know you said there's been rumors about him being sold. I really don't want him to be sold because I think there is a quality centre-back in there. I just think he's really raw still. When we bought him from Saint-Etienne, I think he had one full season. And yes, he was impressive, but he was 18 at the time we bought him. Then he spent another season on loan at Saint-Etienne after we purchased him because that was in the agreement. But as you said, that was cut short with COVID. Then the mismanagement of what looked like we were going to be sending him to Saint-Etienne again, and that fell through at the last minute. I don't know why Saint-Etienne was saying it was our fault, Arsenal saying it was their fault. We don't need to go into the details of that. And then he had a good 6 months with Nice. For me, biasly, I would like to see him in an Arsenal shirt because I think the kid is really talented. I think he's got a really, really good physical profile. He's everything you want of a centre-back. He's good with the ball, he's good in the air, he's strong in the tackle, and he's quick. So from my perspective, I'd like to see him in the squad, but I think for his development, because we forget that he is really young. He's still only 20 years old. Like, I know Wesley Fofana is what his comparison to Saliba is, because obviously he was a centre-back partner, and obviously now Fofana is doing really well in the Prem, but I think it's circumstantial. Leicester don't have a big squad. They make smart investments, but this allows these types of players to grow. With Arsenal, we're a much bigger stature. Obviously, Leicester are higher in the table than us, but we have a bloated squad. We have so many centre-backs for not just this season, but previous seasons. And let's be honest, these centre-backs, although we've wanted to see Saliba get a chance, they are more reliable than what Saliba was. And in the competitions where we were aiming for Champions League, we were aiming for top four, we were aiming to win the Europa. Throwing a kid, especially at the centre-back position, which for me, you have the goalkeeper as the number one spotlight. If you make a mistake as a goalie, everyone's eyes are going to be on you.
Yeah, 100%.
And then it's centre-back, because those are the two positions where you're right in front of the goal. And normally those are leading to goal-scoring chances if you make a mistake. And to be able to put a 19-year-old into all of the Prem games, into all of the European games, was very high risk. And for me, I would love for him to go to a team like Newcastle, for example, and to have a guarantee that he is going to play 38 games as long as he's fit. And then we can mark him on that, because I think if we're looking at timeline, we reinvest heavily into this squad. We get back into a European competition, be it Europa, hopefully not the Conference League, whatever Tottenham are in, because that looks horrible.
Yeah.
Or hopefully the Champions League. Champions League is where we want to be at. But having those European games is going to allow Saliba to get more game time as an Arsenal player. And I think for his development, it's good to get him used to the English style, as I said, the fast pace, and to loan him to like a Norwich or a Newcastle where he would be incredible. Mm-hmm. I think that's the smartest move if we're using a level head. And then I think we can adjust next season, where then we might talk about, okay, what are we doing with Rob Holding? Because then he only has 2 years left on his contract, and then he might be sold. And I think that's the path they're going to go down.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're veering towards it. I think what you said about, obviously in extreme situations, let's be honest, all teams do it. All of a sudden their player is injured in training, before international duty, to kind of get their way out of it. If it comes between a really important fixture, they probably get a bit of a golden handshake from the club for their services. Mate, I'm being honest. Like I personally think this is rife in the football culture, because you see it a lot, and what I think, obviously you could read into the fact that we weren't urgent to stand in his way of going as tantamount to he's going to go out on loan. But I think equally you could look at it as, I mean, he's playing first team football for his country. He's going to be representing his country, coming up against the best in the world, that other teams have to offer. Whilst your pre-season friendlies aren't necessarily all going to be with teams from your league anyway. You're going to be maybe doing a bit of a tour somewhere, playing in another country or another continent, just to kind of boost up the shirt sales and the revenue and all that jazz. And then you'll have the odd friendly with maybe English opposition from the other divisions, maybe some in your division in some kind of tournament format. But I mean, if you're going to have a player going to the Olympics representing his country, that is a high level of football to me. I'm not going to say it's the European Championship level or Copa America or AFCON or any of these major tournament kind of levels. But as you said, for a 19-year-old to represent their country at the Olympics, it's a huge thing. And I think it does give us a chance to look at him. I think we will have scouts on the ground there, with, sort of the French squad, watching him closely. All of this will be relayed back to Arteta. He will get a chance to look at him, no less or no differently from him featuring in the preseason games. The only thing that you would say is you don't see him from the perspective of how he fits in with playing with our players in our team or our specific system. But yeah, by all means, you're going to get a look at him. The other thing that is going to happen is it's going to be sharpening his fitness, right? He's going to be, where are the Olympics, by the way?
I have no idea. To be honest, I have no, because it's obviously we're looking at the European competition being the Euros, and then you have South American teams being the Copa America. So you're talking the best, as you said, the best of the bunch that aren't representing those two competitions. So to be honest, I have no idea.
Yeah, I just think it gives us a chance to look at him, no less. And look, it's a huge thing to represent his country. Sure. I mean, if there is an exit by way of sale, it helps maintain or boost his value in negotiations. Tokyo is the host city, says Silver Fox. So, I think, I'm not sure about what the weather would be like there. I suspect it wouldn't be cold.
Yeah.
So, the training is going to be rigorous, probably some high altitude elements in there. So from a fitness perspective,
it's good.
Yeah, it's good. And I think from an experience perspective, it's also good. And I'm of your mindset as well. Like, I do want to see him succeed with us. I do want to see him in an Arsenal shirt. But that doesn't. I've seen a lot of fans, or I feel like a lot of fans are just being like, he is that guy already. Just put him in our defense, and he's going to be the end to our defensive problems.
No.
And as you said, being a defender or a goalkeeper is unforgiving, especially in this league, especially with the English media, especially with the sensitivity amongst our fans. From sort of how many false dawns have happened prior to him, and how sort of the level of fever pitch in our fan base at the moment that it could stick a knife in him after any bad performance. And let's be honest, young defenders to crack a few, they have to crack a few eggs to make an omelette. You remember sort of the mistakes that Stones was making earlier in his City career. In his Everton career, there were mistakes there. Overall, he was defending well over a 35 or 38 game season. But there was definitely mistakes in there. Maguire, all of these top defenders, they have to sow their royal oats, as it were.
You only learn by playing. And for me, I tend to look at, well, maybe not a good comparison, but I look at Mustafi, for example. Mustafi, when we bought him, wasn't he was young, relatively young. I think he was 24 when we bought him. When we first bought him, he hit the ground running. I remember he was a very good centre back when we bought him. Then he had that injury, and then he made a couple of mistakes. And then ever since then, our fan base never forgave him. They were always, Mustafi shouldn't be in the lineup. Mustafi's going to make a mistake. And you could see it, the change from after those the mistakes that he made. He didn't have the confidence. He didn't have the backing of the fans. And that's what I'm worried about for Saliba, because he is so young and everyone's putting him, I feel like, on this pedestal. They're putting him on a pedestal of like Ruben Diaz or Van Dijk, or putting him here when realistically he's down here. He's very, very talented, but he's very raw, and he may be the answer to our problems. But are we really in a position right now, let's be honest, to give that opportunity to him? And for me, I don't think we are, because you see all the teams that banter us, for example, like Aston Villa chatting to us like they're the big club, they're taking over Arsenal like this. And realistically, we're not in a good place right now. And if we have better quality centre-backs that, like Ben White, like Gabriel, that are ahead of Saliba, that are going to elevate us into Europe, for me, I think the best option is to loan him out, because everyone's seeing it as if we loan him out, next season we sell. There is no, we loan him, he gets game time, he gets experience within the league, then he comes back and he performs in the team. And that's where I personally, I see the smartest option. Of course, I'd like to see him in an Arsenal shirt, but I don't know. That's where I'm at. And I think, as you said, the France is really, really good, but I always see Mikel Arteta going with new players, or he needs to have time to adjust to the system, or he's not used to our play style yet, and this kind of thing. And what you're hearing within the media is Saliba's going to come into pre-season. He's going to be assessed by the coaching staff and Mikel Arteta. He's going to get used to the system, and then we will make a decision. And by taking out that opportunity to play with the team, be coached by Mikel Arteta, and get used to the system, I think it, maybe I'm being wrong, but indicates to a loan move.
Yeah, and I think maybe it does, but I think, as you said, it doesn't mean definitively that we have to sell him. I think as well, we could name a list of players. I mean, Pepe is a prime example of a player that came from the French league, obviously with highly touted, good pedigree, a solid reputation, and his first 3 months of Premier League life crushed it. And when he came, he was like, what, 23, 24?
Yeah, 24.
So, I mean, for him, you could see that he found that difficult. How difficult do you think a 19-year-old finding his way in the game is going to find, dealing with all of that pressure, We should not look to repeat these mistakes. we should be objective. And if a loan to a Premier League club as a bridge, you know, is an opportunity for him to either show that he can cut his teeth at the Premier League level, that he can deal with the added pressure of the increased physicality, the increased measure in which you're pressed and how much more press resistant you need to be, you know, sort of how much less time on the ball you get. And then, you know, sort of all of these things, all of these facets that make the Premier League. If he can show that obviously that he can adjust to that, then great, he can come to our team, you know. And then obviously if he doesn't, he's put himself in the shop window for a club that whose level he would definitely kind of fit into, and he's maintained his value as opposed to sitting on our bench, being promised game time, not being delivered it, and obviously then falling out with the hierarchy and the process in general. And it just probably ended in a lot worse. Even if we sold him, it will probably be for the sort of Mavropanos kind of
you're talking
not 5 million, you know, because we bought him for 27, but definitely more likely to be at more of a loss, you know. Then so I think, you know, the Olympics gives us a chance to look at him, you know. So I mean, hopefully things work out for him. I really like him, but yeah, you know, we'll definitely see. But yeah, the last story that I wanted to touch on, you know, obviously, you know, I think this source, you know, some of it can obviously seem a bit outlandish. The bottom corner, I mean, definitely for breaking stories, isn't one particularly on my radar. But the idea behind this tweet, I really like. You know, so we are obviously in a phase of transition where, you know, there are a lot of players on our books that we know are not going to get to where we need to get to, that can be sold on, that an element of that sell-on value can then be supplemented with revenue generated by the club. I mean, it's never going to be the owners. For people that say that Partey, that Kroenke paid for that transfer, he didn't. All that he did was agree for an allotted amount of our revenue to be spent on that transfer. There's a big difference, you know, to be clear. So, you know, I mean, even if he was to say, look, you know, I think the 250 figure that everyone's been speaking about, people have been looking at it as, no, we're not going to spend 250 million because the Kroenkes aren't going to give us or sanction that much of our revenue to be spent in one window. And I've said all along that I think plausibly there are more than enough players, and I can name a few more beyond these named players here, that I think we could get sold. Some of these are in the process and are very close to going, that we could supplement a revenue release of 100 million. I think we've done in our biggest window, you know, 100. We've breached 100 million bracket in previous windows before when we got Pepe. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Supplementing that with player sales, I personally believe we can raise 100 million from player sales. And I'll give you the names of the players that I think it could and may end up being done from. But I mean, overall, what would you say as well, you know, in terms of, you know, this situation? Do you think it's plausible? And do you think these are the right players to be looking at moving on? Are there any others that come to your mind as well? I mean, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in and say that I think we should keep Willock. I think when we're talking about Premier League proven players, he proved himself, albeit in the tail end of last season, against big teams as well. And I think he should be rewarded with that, with an opportunity to show what he can do in our first team. Other than that, I think the other names looked like fair game to me. What are your thoughts, James?
Yeah, I agree. I think the Willock situation is, I'm in agreement with what the people are saying, is if Newcastle come in, for example, with £35 million, I think, for example, we should accept that, because let's be honest, Willock is still young, but after playing half of a good season and you're getting £35 million from an academy graduate, I think that's a fair price. Or if you're talking about maybe slightly less of a fee, like 30, 25, but then they throw in, like Newcastle, throw in their young goalkeeper as a backup. He's 24, he's English, he's homegrown, I think. That's reasonable. And I agree with what you're saying. It's like, it's a blessing in disguise, I think, missing out on Europe. Within Europe, you need a bloated squad. You need a big squad. You need bodies there in case somebody gets injured. But because we're not in Europe, it allows us to get rid of what would be fringe players for European competitions, like Niles, like Guendouzi. Guendouzi wasn't mentioned, like Nketiah, for example. You're talking alone, if you're talking about Torreira, Xhaka, and Guendouzi, you're looking between 40 and 50 million pounds in sales there. That's revenue that can be generated to like a Basuma or a Neves or whoever we go for. And I think
that's covered Ben White's transfer, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is so many players we can look at, and for me there's only a handful of players that I would say within this squad that are untouchable. So I'd say Kieran Tierney, I'd say Bukayo Saka, I'd say Emma Smith-Rowe, I'd say Thomas Partey, maybe Gabriel. But apart from, you're talking 5 or 6 players in a 30-man squad that are untouchable. And that's where we're at, really. Like, we have so many players. And I think compared to when we bought Pepe, when we bought Torreira, when we bought Guendouzi, we didn't have assets to sell because we were getting rid of the dead wood. You saw the amount of offloading we did, like Carl Jenkinson and all of these players that we got rid of. Now we're in a position where, as you said, we can spend 250 million, but only spend 150 million net because of the outlays we're doing, like the sales. And yeah, I'm in agreement with you. If we're smart, I think that I wasn't born the last time we didn't miss Europe, to put it in perspective. But I think the season that we didn't get Europe, I think is the season we signed Dennis Bergkamp. I think that's right. I could be wrong, but again, I wasn't there around there. I think that's when we bought him, because I think it was 96 maybe when we didn't. I think it was 96 we signed Bergkamp, but I could be wrong. History here, but I don't know. I think
25 years ago. So yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
because I think that's when that was the season we signed Bergkamp, and obviously that worked out well. But as I said, I think it's a blessing in disguise. We can get rid of fringe players that, honestly, if we're being completely honest, 75% of this squad isn't good enough to play at the level we want to be at. Mm-hmm. And then by generating these sales, we can add quality. Even if we're getting rid of 15 players, we're not going to get rid of 15 players, but as a hypothetical, if we get rid of 15 and we bring in 6, but those 6 either get into the starting 11 or really add depth, but in quality. For example, what I'm really excited about is the Lokonga signing. I'm not going to lie, I haven't seen him play, but from YouTube videos I've watched people giving interviews to Belgium journalists and the heat maps and the statistics of what he's at. Signing those types of profiles, that he is the captain of Anderlecht, and I think what we need to be paying attention to is the personalities of who we're signing, not just the profile, but the personality. And to be a captain for a prominent Belgium team at 21 says a lot for me. And if we're going to be targeting those types of players to bolster up our squad, even though it's a slimmed down squad at the moment, going forward, I think, it's the right idea and the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think that definitely puts us in good stead. Obviously, the captain of any club, in their 20s, I think I was saying this, I was debating with, I believe it was, it could have been Chelsea fans. I can't remember the other day, when they were talking about Tierney and Chilwell, making comparisons as they do. Yeah. I said, look, this guy captained Celtic at 17, and I think that, matches that profile of player that is breaking into teams at a very young age, but also establishing themselves very quickly as a leader. We all know how hard it is to break into a team like Celtic. I mean, people will say, I never use the Farmers League tag, for the record. I think it's a bunch of crap. I think there is definitely whilst the Premier League is probably the hardest and the best league to play in the world, I think that what that can lead our fans to do is to inflate our sense of
Mhm.
of importance and of quality as well, way beyond their station. You know, there are good players all over the world. Let's face it. You know, you can go to the continent of Africa and you could look at the leagues there. You will find gems. You could go to South America, Asia. You will find gems anywhere if you look hard enough. And I think, with Lokonga and Tierney, what they've shown is, they've come out from outside the league, but they came with pedigree. They were leaders. They were established at a young age. It's one thing to bed a young player into the team. It's another entirely to put the armband around them, you know, to say that, you know, you're our leader. I think, you know, in order to be able to do that, those guys come in, they increase in their value. I mean, everyone's laughing at the 25 million we spent on Tierney now.
It's such a good buy.
If anyone wants him now, I would say that's at least double that they're going to have to offer.
50, 60, 70, you're talking that.
You know, like, so I think, repeating that cycle is important. Maybe in a few years, we look to sell one or two of those players to then kind of reinvest as Leicester do. You know, and I've spoken about that a lot this week as well. Leicester consistently sell one of their best players every season. Go back to when they won the league to now, you can name a player every season that they have sold. You know, from Kante to Drinkwater to Maguire,
Mahrez,
Mahrez.
Might be Maddison, hopefully. Maddison this year, hopefully.
Fingers crossed, and we're going to be speaking about that a lot next week. But you don't see the Leicester fans moaning about those player sales.
No.
Because usually a portion of that money is taken. 2 or 3 other areas of the squad are addressed with quality. Some of the money is put into the bank just to kind of keep the club on a stable financial footing and to help it grow and sustain on a financial level. I mean, I want to get this back up, and I'll go through the players that I think I would definitely sell. Bellerin, can we get 20 million for him? I don't know, maybe, but I mean, I would, you know, I think 20, 15, anything around that region, maybe with some realistic add-ons, maybe with sell-on clauses, which we're looking to insert now into deals as well, which we did with Mavropanos and a few of the other squad players that were let go from the youth teams. Torreira, 15. Can we do that? I think maybe some of these valuations are a bit off. I do believe that 18 to 20 million should be the price for Xhaka. I do think that 10 million is a bit low for Maitland-Niles because he played from January consistently with West Brom, and you know, he's got good experience. He's been capped at international level. And if you're selling him to another Premier League club, which is likely, he's hitting that homegrown quota. These are all things that you should leverage to your advantage. And I think 10 million is just an absolute joke, if I'm being honest. I think at least 15, maybe 20. 20 million, I think it would need to have add-ons for Willock. I think for me, the sort of price that I would look at based on the impact that he had for Newcastle where we're talking about it's an offer that we can't refuse. I think it's 40 million. I'll be honest. I think it's 40 million. I think 35, maybe, you know, but definitely, I think if you were to ask me where I would draw my line in the sand, I would draw it at 40 million and settle for 35. I wouldn't draw it at 35, knowing I'd have to then settle for 30 with add-ons or whatever. So I would draw the line at 40 and see how close they get to it. But I still wouldn't be putting him in the shop window. Nelson, I think maybe 15 million might be a push. I think maybe he wasn't given much of a chance last season. Maybe a loan again could help him, but a loan with a purchase option, maybe that could be looked at. I think 15 million probably would be what we would look at. I would like to add Guendouzi to this because I see he's been missed out. Definitely our left back Kolasinac, I think, is another one that you could add to that list. Nketiah, as you brought up, I think good player, but doesn't fit our system.
No, he's a goal poacher. He's not a he's not like you see Martinelli or Balogun or Lacazette.
No.
He can't hold the ball up. He's not like an all-round striker. And yeah, I'm in agreement. And I think
he
I'm
needs to
like
play
that.
with a second striker to
Yeah,
get the best
almost,
out of him. We're not going to change the system for him. So
no, I think he's like it's not. I'm not comparing him to this player. I'm not comparing him to Timo Werner. But you've seen when Timo Werner is a sole striker, he's not good. But when he plays off of Kai Havertz, he's a good player. He's missed a lot of chances
as well. You know, like when he had a striker that he played off as well.
Yeah, it was Poulsen, I think it was the tall striker. But yeah, no, I'm in agreement. And I think with Lacazette, for us, I think it's time to move him on. But a lot of everyone's linking him to like Isaac or young strikers like 21. I don't think that's what we should be doing because we have Martinelli, we have Balogun who are like 19, 20. I think the profile we need to look at is 25 to like 27. So I don't know, Andre Silva, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, that kind of profile. I think that's where we should be going with it. But yeah, as you said, the amount of players we have, we can, if we're doing it smart, this is now going to come down to Richard Garlick and how much he can prove his worth. How much we can get for these players. And I think with just what you've put of that tweet and then what we've added, what me and you have added, we've probably added like 50, 60 million just from 3 players, from Lacazette, from Nketiah and Doozy as well. Those 3 players, you're talking 40 to 50, maybe plus, depends on how much we can get. So yeah, I think there is money to be made. It just needs to be done smart and in the right way.
Yeah, and I think that the realistic figure would be if we can raise 100 from sales.
Yeah.
And then the ownership can then say from our revenue, there's another 100 to 150. Then yeah, you're looking at a net transfer spend, you know, of only the 150, but obviously, you know, there's all kinds of things you could do there. I mean, you know, look at 5 quality players. You know, I think we need cover at left back. I think we'd need a right back, 2 centre mids, maybe a creative player and a goalkeeper. We're seeing the likes of Onana available at a very affordable price.
Very good purchase.
Due to his situation. I don't want Ramsdale at all, but I mean at 20 million as well, which we can get down. I think if we do buy him, it shouldn't be for 20 million.
Yeah, well, he plays second fiddle, and we did that with Martinez. Martinez was second goalkeeper, and then we sold him for 20. So why would we spend 20 million on a backup anyway? So for me, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. You know, I think getting Onana in, maybe keeping Leno for one more season if we don't sell him. I think because Onana's ban is until November. I don't think he can. He can't even train until then. By the way, guys,
he can't. Yeah, he can't train till September. I don't think. I think it's 2 months before his ban.
The only thing he can do is train on his own. If he is caught training with any first team or any affiliated registered club, he's getting another ban. So, you know, to expect him to come in at November and then just suddenly, that's not going to happen. I can tell you right now, you're not going to come after being out the length of time he has with the ban, having not trained professionally for the length of time he has, and then just suddenly switch it all on again. It doesn't work like that, you know. So, I mean, I've been hearing a lot of talk of getting rid of Leno. And yeah, look, in terms of the profile of goalkeeper he is, he's a shot stopper. And I think we've only really seen the gaps or the deficiencies in his game in Arteta's system because of the fact that other managers have accommodated for the fact he can't play out the back by not asking him to. And I do believe you can have a system where you play out the back that doesn't involve your goalkeeper playing out for the back. You just literally tell your goalkeeper, make the easiest 5-yard pass or don't be adventurous. You let the defenders do that, you know, which again goes into the Ben White thing, you know, like, you know, so, you know, I think, like looking at that, I just want to look at that list one more time in terms of the players coming in on it as well. I like Camavinga. I think he's looked class. You know, I remember watching him pocket PSG age 16. Definitely class. We know that White's done. I think Odegaard did well last season, and I definitely think with a pre-season and with the form that he finished last season with, taking that into the next season, he could really hit the ground running. Lokonga is a good young up and coming prospect. 50, and then it says there 52 million buys you a left back and a right back. You know, you've got Riddle Baku, the likes of Rico Henry that could come in at left back. He's just come up with Brentford. You know, you've got Josh Doig at Hibs. You know,
the left back I wanted
plus add-ons.
Yeah, the left back I wanted. I think it's the left back from Palace. I think his name is Mitchell.
Tyrese Mitchell,
yeah, he's quality. He's 21. He's a very good young player. I think that's who I'd be looking at. But it's all relative, I think. So
we should have looked at him. The unfortunate thing was he renewed his contract in April, and the time really to do that was to go in with a big contract offer and a big signing on offer in January. We should have just done that. You know, like through intermediaries, I think. Obviously, staying at Crystal Palace, I mean, you know, I think he's come through their system, was what he wanted to do. But yeah, definitely another good player as well. I think I was watching another content creator, you know, Jess. I was watching her and a few other guys discuss the left back situation yesterday. Someone obviously mentioned that I think what you need to have with the left backs is a bit of a gap age-wise. I think if you bring in a Mitchell now, he's getting first-team football at Palace, and he probably thought, why would I go to Arsenal and be second fiddle to a Tierney? You know, when I'm only 3 years younger than him, that pretty much is pigeonholing me into being second fiddle for the rest of my career. You know, look at the England right-back situation, you know, with Bissaka not being called up. It's just an unfortunate thing where his age, the age that he's born in, is one where we are unbelievably blessed for right back. So I think we've either got to go with an experienced player that is going to be happy to play second fiddle. Yeah. But I kind of veer towards the route of a young understudy. You know, and I think that's why I look at Doig, because he's been playing at Hibs, obviously a lot lower level of football. 19, he's a lot younger. Tierney, a fellow Scotsman who's made that kind of transition, you know, kind of helping embed in those guys having that kind of cultural simulation, like kind of aspect from both being Scottish. I like the look of that deal. You know, I would hope that Tierney wouldn't get injured straight away and then be expected to suddenly play, you know, like Doig being thrown into the deep end, which could make or break him. A few of them discuss maybe both, you know, maybe getting an experienced statesman that can come in and a young prospect, you know, so that when that older prospect after a year or two is done, that younger prospect kind of being ready and tailor-made to actually not only provide backup for Tierney, but actually compete with him as well.
Yeah, I think it's what the issue is. We have such a difficult choice with the left back. If Kieran Tierney didn't have his injuries, we would be, okay, look, let's sign a young left back because we know Tierney's going to play 30, 35 games a season. We might give Doig 5 to 10 cup games, some league starts whenever we're playing like a lower league side. But because of how injured he is, I'd be worried, as you said, if Tierney plays, he plays 5 games and then we have Doig is our only option. It's a bit again, but it's like that's with the Saliba situation. So it swings and roundabouts. It's who they sign. I'm with you. I want a younger profile because of what we've done in terms of shifting old Deadwood, Louise, Socrates, Mustafi, all of these older players that are just not where we're at because we have a young team and I want to build on that. So I think it's important as well. We have a young core now, but it's going to take us 3 to 4 seasons, I personally think, to be where we want to be. It took Liverpool that long with a rebuild, and I think it's going to take us like that. So when we are at that level, it's not just, okay, we need to recycle the whole squad. We have an experienced squad there, but then we also have the younger group of players that are 24, 25, about to enter their prime to be able to do that. And I think that's for the successful squads that you've seen City do it really well. They have a group of Silva, Company, Aguero, these players, Fernandinho, Yaya Toure, these 5 to 6 select players that are like that, and I think that's what's going to be like with Thomas Partey and maybe a few additions. When we do get 4 seasons down the line, we have that. Okay, look, this is our experienced group, 5 to 6 players that are in the starting 11 that make up the spine that are there. But we also have 22, 23-year-olds that are right. Okay, you're actually really good. You're going to get a lot of game time. Go play. So that's where I think we should be going.
Yeah, I definitely agree as well. And I think, our most successful era under Wenger saw us trusting youth. It's a big part of the club's ethos, as well. You look at, I think only really United, can really equal us in terms of the consistency with which we have academy products in and around our first team squads. And, that part of our history should be tapped into 100%, because when, if people talk about, oh, we can't go for the Haalands and this, that's, and the others, and they think that's a bad thing. But
no,
Leipzig went in for Haaland, or, or where he came. It wasn't Leipzig, sorry.
It was, he came from the Austrian league, Salzburg.
Yeah, Salzburg, their sister team. Yeah. Salzburg, when they bought Haaland, no one knew who the hell he was.
Yeah, nobody.
No one knew who the hell he was. And you look at their model, that's exactly what they do. They bring in these players, they integrate them. Sometimes they move them on to the sister team in Leipzig. You saw Sablasle, the player that we were looking at, moved from Salzburg to Leipzig in January, 20 years old. He had a 20 million release clause. He goes to, Salzburg didn't buy him for a lot of money, so they've made a profit. Then he goes to Leipzig, 2-3 seasons. He'll go to somewhere like Bayern or another big European club,
for sure.
3-4 times the amount. And then they reinvest those funds, and they keep doing that until eventually they don't need to sell their best players because they've built up the kitty, the war chest in terms of the money and the financial situation. But then they've got these players here that are winning things, that are good enough to keep winning things and that are bought into the club that don't want to go anywhere. So there's a lot of work to do. I think, we should tap into that. And when it comes to attracting young players, because we have that in our history, I think that's why to Lokonga we're attractive. He's of Belgian descent. So, his age 21, he would have grown up, in that successful era when we were blooding in and integrating youngsters, where the affinity there with the French culture, which obviously in Belgium and in sort of the Finnish culture you have, it was there. And that's why he's telling Napoli and Atalanta and all those teams not to bother.
Yeah, it's a joke for
him.
I think,
but look, sorry, carry on.
I know. I think I know we're running out of time, but I think in the Lokonga situation, just to add on to that, I think it's helpful that the last player that was a young player from Anderlecht that was Belgium that was their captain was Yuri Tielemans, and you've seen what he's done at Leicester. So it's not the same club, but the history of Arsenal and as you said, our progress of generating young academy players. I think that's played a part as well. But overall, as you said, lots of work to be done, but we have 2 months to do it. So fingers crossed we can get to the stage where we're excited for the next season.
Yeah, and I think that's how we raise the floor for now. Just where we are, we're not in Europe. We need to be realistic about the sort of proposition we are to players and how attractive we are. And I think that's what the route we got to go down with the youth. But James, look, it's been great to have you on today. I think after seeing you on the terrace yesterday, it's been great to have you on. Would love to have you on more shows on my show, and I think the Armoury TV as well. We'll speak about that afterwards. And guys, as always, it's been a pleasure. Enjoy the weekend, and Spurs, when will you get a manager? I just want to end on that note. When will it be? It's just funny to watch. But guys, I will catch you up next week with a new guest, and enjoy the weekend.
Peace.